In a quiet green valley stood a small village surrounded by fields and rivers. Life there was peaceful and simple. Families worked in the fields, children played by the riverbanks, and neighbors shared meals together. Among the villagers lived a family of 4 who loved one another deeply. The father was David, strong and hard-working, who spent his days tending the crops. His wife, Emma, was gentle but firm, caring for their home and garden. They had 2 children. Sophie, a curious 6-year-old girl with big brown eyes, and Ben, her playful little brother who was only 4. Their house was small but full of warmth. Sophie liked to help Emma water the vegetable garden, while Ben loved pushing his little red toy truck through the dirt. On sunny days, they chased butterflies or played hide-and-seek among the trees. At night, Emma told them bedtime stories while David tucked them in with hugs. Their home was filled with laughter, love, and the sound of rain tapping gently on the roof during summer storms. But one year, the rain didn't stop. At first, it seemed harmless. The children splashed in puddles and laughed at the sight of frogs hopping across the road. But as days passed, the river grew wider, faster, and angrier. The sound of rushing water replaced the cheerful trickle Sophie and Ben once loved. "Papa," Sophie said one morning, standing at the bridge with Emma, "the river is touching the bottom of the bridge." David frowned. "If it rises any more, the village will be in danger." That evening, he told his family the truth. "We may have to leave our home if the river keeps rising. It is not safe to stay." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "But this is our home." Emma hugged her tightly. "Homes can be rebuilt. People cannot. What matters most is that we stay safe together." The next day, the warning came. The river had spilled into the fields, and the water was spreading fast. Families were told to leave immediately. David and Emma packed quickly, taking only what they could carry. Emma filled a bag with food, clothes, and a kettle. Sophie packed her teddy bear, her picture book, and pencils. Ben clutched his toy truck and his blanket, Mr. Cozy. Rain pounded on their roof as they stepped outside. Muddy water rushed across the paths. David carried Ben on his shoulders, while Sophie held Emma's hand tightly. Neighbors hurried past, carrying bundles and crying children. The village they loved was sinking into water and fear. When they reached the bridge, the river was terrifying. It roared beneath them, swollen and brown. The wooden planks trembled under their feet. Sophie clutched her teddy and whispered to herself, "Be brave." On the other side, a truck waited to take families to safety. David lifted Emma, Sophie, and Ben aboard, then climbed in himself. The truck was crowded, filled with shivering children and worried parents. Sophie sat on Emma's lap, watching the raindrops blur the view of her village. As the truck rumbled away, she whispered, "Goodbye, home." They arrived at a nearby town, where a large school had been turned into a shelter. Inside, mats covered the floor and families huddled together. Volunteers handed out bread and warm soup. David led them to a corner where they could spread their blanket. "This will be our home for a while," he said gently. "It doesn't feel like home," Sophie muttered, hugging her teddy. Emma stroked her hair. It will keep us safe, and safety is what we need most right now. Ben curled up with Mr. Cozy, whispering, I like this fort. His innocence made Sophie smile a little. Life in the shelter was strange at first. Families crowded together, and the nights were noisy with crying babies and creaking mats. But volunteers were kind. They brought toys and books for the children. One woman gave Sophie a notebook and colored pencils. Sophie drew their old house with its red roof, their garden, and Ben's toy truck. Ben proudly pointed, That's me. Sophie soon made a friend named Lucy, who was also 6. They shared crayons, told each other stories, and laughed together. Ben found a friend too, Jack, who loved toy cars. Slowly, the shelter began to feel less scary. But sometimes, Sophie woke at night, missing her home. Mama, she whispered one evening, what if our house is gone forever? Emma hugged her close. Then we will build a new one. Home is not just a roof. Home is love, and we will always have that. Weeks passed before the rain finally stopped. The sun returned, though the fields were muddy and scarred. David joined other men in visiting the village to check the damage. When he returned, Sophie rushed to him, heart pounding. Papa, what about our house? David knelt and hugged her. The water filled the garden, but the house is still standing. It needs cleaning and repair, but it is there. We can go back. Sophie's face lit up. We can go home? Yes, David smiled, but it will take hard work. Are you ready to help? Yes, Sophie shouted. Even Ben clapped his hands. I'll build roads for my truck, he declared. The day they returned, the family crossed the bridge together. The water had lowered, and grass was beginning to grow again. Birds chirped as if singing a welcome song. When Sophie saw their little cottage with its red roof still standing, she ran ahead shouting, Home! We're home! Ben followed, holding Mr. Cozy and his truck high in the air. Emma and David stood side by side, their eyes shining with relief. There was much work ahead, mud to clear, fences to rebuild, gardens to replant, but their hearts were full of hope. That night, they sat inside their house, eating a simple meal together. Sophie whispered to her teddy, We came back. She fell asleep smiling, with Ben snuggled beside her. And though the storm had taken much, it had not taken the most important thing. For Sophie, Ben, Emma, and David knew that as long as they had one another, they could face any storm, rebuild any home, and begin again. Because home is not only where you live, home is where your family is, and where love never leaves.
Subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss more amazing stories like this.